All right, and three, two, one. Okay, I am Leon Rome. I am the editor and reporter at the Genesee Valley Observer, GVO.news, and we have Rocco Lucente here. How you doing, Rocco?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Great, great. So, we're here with you today because you gathered some footage that really, frankly, took it took some balls, frankly, to get that footage um of a drag queen kids event. So why don't you tell us first of all who you are and then tell us what happened.
Absolutely. So, my name is Rocco Lucente, and I am a fourth generation Ithaca native. My family moved to the area in the early 1920s. We've been here ever since. I am a business owner in the area, and I have been a political activist in the area for certainly the last several years. I host a YouTube channel called Ithaca Uncensored, where we chronicle both the decline and the chaos surrounding the political situation in the Ithaca area and the decline in the culture surrounding the far left within Ithaca. And certainly, this youth drag show that they did was a perfect example of that.
Absolutely. So that is definitely a symbol of degradation of culture. Was there anything in particular that really set your political activism journey in motion, or for you that really inspired you to act? Any one particular thing, or maybe several?
So I had really been involved very heavily in, political analysis and that kind of thing for a long time before I really crossed over into doing hardcore activism. And what made me cross over into wanting to do that was seeing the very suppressive and censorious nature of the political culture of the Ithaca area. You weren't allowed in the Ithaca area to express certain opinions without being drummed out of polite society. And these weren't opinions that the overwhelming majority of us would regard as being heinous. These were opinions that are shared by, half the country, tens or hundreds of millions of Americans. So when I saw that things like supporting the sitting president or supporting the police department within the city were considered to be taboo, as somebody who was a longtime native of the area, as somebody who owns a business in the area, and as somebody who cares about the future of the area and doesn't plan on going anywhere, I cannot just stand idly by and watch this rot, this cancer infest the community. So I decided to speak out against it. And I've been doing that now for, I'd say, the better part of 3 years.
Outstanding. Can you hear me? Outstanding. So, um, how did you find this drag show in Ithaca? This was 2021, right?
This was in 2022. This was in the summer of
22,
2022.
sorry. My mistake. How
Yeah.
did you find hear about this event?
So I heard about it through a friend on social media who I'd done political activism with, who encountered it at the Tompkins County Public Library. The Tompkins County Public Library was hosting a what they called, I believe it's called a drag boot camp. It was 4 classes that they were putting on, and it was going to teach kids, I forget the exact age range, but it was all underage kids to perform drag in anticipation for a public youth drag show that was to be held on the Ithaca Commons during the Ithaca Downtown Pride Week. So when I came across these classes, I actually went over to the library to try to, film and see what was going on with them at first, but they had them not out in the open part of the library, but in a little classroom area. It was actually a fairly large classroom area, but there was really no way for me to get in there without arousing suspicion. So I decided that I was going to skip the classes, just go to the event, film the event, and demonstrate to the world the sort of demonic culture that we are beginning to manifest in our most far left communities in this country.
Absolutely. What was So you found out about this. Was this the first time you'd done something like this? Or well, was this the second attempt, you'd say, then at doing something like this?
So this was the second attempt in the sense that I tried to go to the library, and going to the library did not work out. But in the sense of trying to do undercover sort of ambush journalism, this was certainly my first attempt at that. This entire situation, I'd done a lot of political rallying in the past. I'd done some election related activism around, petitioning for candidates and that kind of thing. But I had never done anything like this where I was going in with a camera and trying to expose a story.
Wow. Okay. Um, so one of the quotes that I heard was, well, backing up actually, these drag shows, they say that it's not really grooming. It's not like a drag show in the nightclub. It's just kind of it's actually, and it's hard to say, it's hard to argue that it's not exactly, it's not exactly the same as what's going on in the nightclubs. Um, but you still feel it's grooming. Why do you feel that way?
So let's be very clear. The people who are saying that kind of thing are nothing less, well, they are either one, ignorant, or they are two, nothing less than people who are making excuses to gain public acceptance for their sick agenda of sexually exploiting kids. This drag show featured grotesque sexual dancing. At one point, one of the children actually thrust their crotch in the air for everybody to see in the most appalling way that you could think of. It would be indecent for an adult to do this in public, much less for a child. You had a general atmosphere which was promoting the sexualization of children. I think that probably the best example of that was there was a gentleman there. I shouldn't call him a gentleman. There was a person there who was wearing white overalls who kept going up onto the stage and giving dollar tips to every single child who was on the stage, and to explain to those who might sincerely not know why or might be pretending to not know why that is not okay. A tip is something that you give somebody in exchange for a service. These children were dancing in a sexually exploitive way, and this man felt that they were providing a service to him enough that he gave them a tip. It was very clear that the service that they were providing was sexual gratification, was sexual pleasure, and he was trying to signal his approval for that by giving them a tip in a way that when they got older, went to strip clubs, saw what this was about, they could see that this is how you gain approval within this community, which, to be clear, I don't think that within the broader gay community, that's how you gain approval. This is a sick and small group of degenerates who are intentionally targeting children because nobody in these communities, for the most part, is brave enough to stand up and stop them. And that's fundamentally why I went, because that is what needs to happen.
Yeah, I from what I'm gathering from the community is it's not really something you can remain neutral on. However, for me, I would ask if we separate these so-called gays that are different than the others, uh, do we still want to have adult drag shows in our community? Is this something, is this really a truly expression of free speech, even when it's the adults? But that would be more of a personal opinion. But just standing up to child grooming is essential. So my question to you, that seemed to answer my question. The drag workshops, what would be the purpose of the drag workshops? Do you think it's plausible to believe that every single child is looking to go into drag where they just read storybooks? Or what do you think the end goal is for them when they reach adulthood and are still in drag? What does that look like when they hit 18?
Well, I think that one of the real concerns that we have here is that this is such a new phenomenon that we just don't know. And, I can certainly speculate, and I think that my speculation is it depends on whose perspective you're looking at it from. If you're looking at it from the perspective of the child themselves, my heart breaks for these children. Most of them are, you know, very visibly physically awkward. They're going through a difficult time in their lives. They're being fed some demonic propaganda from some horrible people who do not have their best interests at heart, and they are being put through hell because of it. So, from the child's perspective, I don't think that there's anything bad that can be said. From the parent's perspective, I think that there's certainly, some level of social acceptance. The trans child is the new adopted African child. It's become sort of an accessory in certain groups of our culture. And I think some parents are doing that, and others are being threatened into it. I mean, I've known that there are some parents who have been told when their kids are going through this and they take them to the doctor that, you have a choice between either a dead daughter or a trans son. What do you want? And to put somebody through that and to, threaten them in that way is profoundly cruel. But the people who really have the bad intentions here are the people who are actually doing the grooming, the drag queens themselves, the people running the program, the people at the Tompkins County Library, the people at this community center in Monroe County who are doing this. Those are the demons who we really need to confront, because they are the ones who have a plan to indoctrinate these children into a sexual subculture, which will lead to them being more sexually promiscuous as they get older. And I truly, genuinely believe that is the point, and that is the goal, and that this is the sexual grooming of children. And if we are a society that cares at all about children, we have a moral obligation to stop it.
Absolutely. Um, do you remember Vivian Darling?
I do. He called himself Tilia Cordata at the particular show that I was at. But yes,
Tilia Cordata.
that's what he called
I,
himself.
I
Yeah.
okay, I didn't see that on the video. I just saw the Vivian Darling. So on his TikTok, he says, quote, most of us know that when we're performing for children, we are not sexualizing our performances. In regards to Ithaca, what do you think about that?
Well, again, this man was
Or
taking,
everything you've seen, really? Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, again, this man was taking dollar tips as he was sexually dancing on the stage from children. Parents were sending their children up with dollar bills to tip this man as he was dancing. And he was facilitating a program where other adults who appeared to be close to the program were giving the children dollar tips as they were dancing in a sexually exploitative manner. So this is all essentially, it's lying. It's flat out lying to people in order to cover up for a a horrific agenda. And this man, he's about 5'4", probably about 400 pounds. He goes around in this grotesque looking makeup. He doesn't even try to look like a real woman. I mean, honestly, he looks like a zombie clown. And he goes out there and dances in a sexually provocative manner in front of these children, to the extent that he can, that somebody with his size and mobility issues. He goes up there and he dances in a sexually provocative manner in front of these children, and he attempts to get them to imitate it and to fall into this culture where they will eventually grow up to do the same thing. So I hold no regard whatsoever for his gaslighting, lying garbage. That's what I regard it as. And I use the word demonic. That's not rhetorical flourish. I believe that this is literally something that is sent from Satan himself, and that these people are enacting that agenda.
So the response to that from this Vivian Darling character, which by the way, the Genesee Valley Observer has the identity, the names of every single one of these drag performers, and they will be revealed shortly. I think it's fair to the public to do that. And actually we'll get into that with vetting in a minute. But here was the response to Well, the drag performers do sexual acts at night, right? That's when the kids go to bed. You turn on the adult like you turn on the adult TV shows and all the sitcoms with the cursing come on and everything like that. And says Universal Studios is a simile. Two different things for two different audiences. They make children's movies, Minion, like the Despicable Me, maybe Shrek with a little bit of crude humor, but still family friendly, and then all the way to slasher horror flicks. Uh, is this two different products for two different audiences, or is this more obfuscating?
So, look, I will certainly concede that most of the child drag stuff that I have seen is not quite as graphic as the stuff that you would see at a private club in an adult show. But let's, just for the sake of the argument, let's accept what they say at face value. Let's say that the child drag show is completely different from every adult drag show, that the adult drag shows are where sexual things go on, and that doesn't happen at child drag shows. Well, what they are admitting in that case is that they are putting on a version for children of a performance that is explicitly sexual in nature. It would be like saying we're putting on a pole dancing show for children, but it's not sexual. We're putting on a pornography for children, but we're going to keep clothing on so it's not sexual. It's like saying that when you are doing something that is fundamentally sexual in every single context, except for when you are doing it with children, then you shouldn't be doing it with children because by nature it is sexual in context. And at a minimum, you are attempting to groom those children into a lifestyle where when they become adults, this will be a sexual thing. And I think that is the point. I don't think they want the kids to wait until they're 18 to get to that point. But ultimately, I think it's about grooming them into a subculture, which they admit among adults is sexual in nature. So I just hold no regard for that argument whatsoever.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. That it's just nonsense. With that, can a drag queen or drag king or whatever would have you that performs sexually that does clearly sexual performances because every single one of these posters that they're on all have sexual innuendos and multiples, not just one off like the one dirty joke in the PG-13 movie where you're like, oh, there it is. Glad that's over. Uncover the kid's eyes. Every single one has a sexual reference on it. Can a person that participates in activities like that be a mentor for a child, in your opinion?
Absolutely not. I think all these people should be banned from being around children. Frankly, I think all these people should be thrown in prison after a trial. This is sexual abuse of children, and it is horrific and it needs to be stopped. And it is up to the adults in these communities to stop this sexual abuse of children. And no, absolutely not. These people cannot be mentors to children, especially not children who would gravitate toward this sort of thing, who tend to be more vulnerable, tend to be more confused, tend to be more desperate for acceptance. And that's why they're targeted. It's just like any other pedophile who targets the lonely, geeky kid because they are a loner and they're not going to tell their parents what happened to them. These people have always targeted the most easily exploited children throughout the centuries. This is nothing new. So we as adults need to stand up for those children and confront these people because if we don't, more and more of them will be harmed. And thousands, if not tens of thousands, have already been harmed by this. And frankly, it's a major societal test whether we will stand up to it. If we will not, then we don't deserve to call ourselves Americans anymore. But if we will, then we have a chance to actually save these kids from this horrific nightmare.
Absolutely. So with that, in terms of victimization, the argument is kids have been molested by pastors. Um, and that this therefore means that if any incident that happens at a drag queen story hour, as long as it happens at a lower per capita rate, drag queen story hour is a should effectively has a better argument for existing than churches. Uh, what is your opinion on that, basically? What do you think of that argument?
Well, this is why
Do
I
you
call
have
these
to,
people.
sorry, do you have to touch somebody to sexually abuse them?
You absolutely don't have to touch somebody to sexually abuse them. If you are mentally, psychologically, emotionally manipulating them in a manner which leads them toward, sexual proclivities which are within your realm of desire, that is child grooming. And child grooming is absolutely sexual abuse. And just on the church argument, because this is part of why I call these people demonic, because they constantly attempt to paint what is good as bad and paint what is bad as good. I don't ever hear them making this per capita argument when it comes to the public school. Anybody who's done any research into it knows that the molestation rates among public school teachers dwarf those among priests. But nobody goes around, making jokes about public school teachers being pedophiles. Nobody says that we should take the kids out of the schools to stop them from being molested. Nobody says that schools are bad and dangerous places for children because of this. And that's because the basic, this has always been an argument from a false premise. These people never cared about the children, they never cared about the molestation issue. And to be clear, I believe anybody who molests a child should get the death penalty. My heart breaks for any child who was sexually abused by an adult degenerate who wanted to take advantage of them. But for these people to use the greatest institution of morality in human history, that being the church, to deflect from their own child predator behavior, it's just disgusting. And when you look at the statistics, it's not justified. When you look at the logic behind it, it's not justified. And overall, I think that anybody who has a little bit of common sense can go to a church, can go to one of these drag shows, and you can see what the difference is. And if you really think that the drag shows a better environment for children, well, then you probably shouldn't have children.
Absolutely. That's a great point there. Now, in terms of your thoughts, they kind of try to paint people that feel like you or I that we're in a minority. How do you feel about that?
That's funny. No, this is a matter of, let me draw an analogy to you. In the Muslim world, they've consistently done polling and found that only about 30% of Muslims believe in Islamic extremism, terrorism, that kind of thing. And yet, most Muslim states support some form of Islamic terrorism. And the reason for that is because the terrorists are the most vocal, they're the most violent, they're the most willing to inflict consequences on the people who disagree with them. So the moderate Muslims don't fight back against them and they run roughshod. Similarly, in communities like Ithaca, New York, even the majority of Democrats and far left liberals do not support putting a child on a stage in the middle of the biggest public commons in the city and having them dance in a sexually exploitive manner for adults. Even most far left liberals in Ithaca do not support that. They don't. But they are not willing to stand up to this Al Qaeda like element of the left who will inflict consequences on them, ruin their lives, try to get them fired from their jobs, try to ruin their social relationships if they fight back against them. So those people rule the day in Ithaca, and they rule the day in most far left cities. And until the less extreme elements of the left wing coalition are willing to stand up to those people, their children are going to be subjected to this, and their children are going to be targeted by these sick, degenerate creeps. And, I frankly, if they are not willing to stand up and fight back against that, I have no respect for them at all. And I pray for their children.
Yeah, an interesting point here is that 53% of Democrats believe that to some degree that drag queen story arc is inappropriate. only 47% surveyed find it at least somewhat appropriate, which suggests to me a wishy-washy answer. Perhaps somebody is feeling a little bit of social pressure to answer a certain way. Um, so also, in addition to that argument, U.S. church membership is falling rapidly. The church, I mean, good or bad, whatever you think of that, the church does not hold influence. People are arriving at these conclusions by purely a just a world-based view, just non-religious. Um, Psychotic, Psycho Dick swears that their name is not Psycho Dick. Um, it's not an innuendo name, yet so many drag queens' names are clearly sexual innuendos. What do you feel about that the name is a pun for the word psychotic based on this character's well, I'll say we know their first name. We'll say Michael. Based on Michael's uh Michael has a degree in psychology, and so therefore that's a pun based on that. Do you think that holds water, or do you think this is just covering up for what's just another sexual innuendo name in a long list of drag queen names like this and drag king names?
Oh, I mean, Psycho Dick, come on. It's obvious, it's a slap in the face, and anybody who believes that that's not a sexual innuendo is attempting to excuse pedophilic behavior. They don't actually believe that. They are trying to, you know, they're trying to fit new facts that don't fit their worldview into a worldview that is incompatible with those ideas. So that's all that is. No, I don't believe that at all. But what I will say is that, I think that most of these drag queens suffer from borderline personality disorder or some sort of a personality disorder, which makes them extraordinarily dangerous. These are not, and I won't get into it too much, but these are not disorders like depression or anxiety. A lot of these like BPD actually manifest as having toxic personality traits and wanting to inflict harm on other people. So that somebody who is into drag and into child drag shows is a psychologist. And I mean, I pray for any patient who goes to that psychologist.
Yeah, 100%. Um, do you think it's this is another quote. So Michael posted a picture of themselves topless with a body that has been modified by clear testosterone injections. There's body hair on the breasts, but there's still a presence of breasts, and it's on Instagram. Um, we're running out of time here. What do you think about this quote? This is also an experiment post, and this only goes to prove my point further. In 2020, let's stop sexualizing the female nipple. Here I clearly still have my breasts, yet Insta didn't make me censor them. Why was a friend of mine censored for hers earlier? Do you think that what are the chances the child saw this on Instagram before attending the event or after?
Well, I think that, the good news is that most kids, at least I coach youth sports, so I have a little bit of experience with kids and social media. Most of these kids are not really following that kind of thing. So I think that the good news is a child probably didn't see that. However, you can't guarantee a child didn't see it. And actually, the idea that not one child saw it is probably wrong. Probably at least one child did see it, and it is sexually exploitive to have that kind of thing on there. Instagram should take that off. Just because this woman takes testosterone and calls herself a man doesn't mean that those aren't female breasts. And yes, female breasts are sexual. The reasons why are obvious. So, the uh, these are all bad faith arguments. And I think that's what people really have to take away almost as the big picture to a lot of these objections is that these people are not arguing with you in good faith. They are putting up they're throwing spaghetti at the wall, to use a PG term, and seeing what sticks. And they don't actually have any respect for truth, any respect for morality, any respect for decency. They have only respect for their desire to carry out their goals. and their goals are the sexual grooming of children.
They absolutely are. Some of these terrible quotes I have, and I'm going to read these out that we wouldn't have without your activism, Rocco. So I really appreciate that, and I know our audience does too, which is very local. So these are just a few quotes, and just kind of get your reaction to it, and then we'll see if you have anything else to say, and then we'll kind of take it from there. So this is from all of your videos. This flammable queer is sure to put a smile on your face, referencing a child performer. References to the same child drag performer, Gay Cella, as Miss Mommy Longlegs herself. Some more quotes. Those are from Vivian Darling. Some quotes from Psycho Dick. This is all within a minute. Mary Poppins, I'm far from it, speaking to children. I don't think any children want me to be babysitting right now. If y'all want a dragged out Alice Cooper watching you, that's something else we got to talk about. Another quote, he's the beautiful chocolate man that you saw last set. Please give it up for Mr. Valentino Rose. And then just a bunch of bizarre references to family. Has everybody been hydrating? I don't see y'all drinking water. I'm going to turn into an angry dad real quick. So drink some water. Constantly asserting herself as a male. The announcer in another show, this is a different show, Batavia Pride. I'll give you something. Yeah, another microphone, and hands over a microphone. When the children call for hugs, Michael says, thanks, Grandma. And this is a reference to drag mentorship, which is also bizarre, as it's always family references. And then the announcer makes a second sexual reference in less than 30 seconds, saying, while Michael is hugging these people, he loves this because they ask for consent first. That's fantastic. What do you think? That speaks for itself, huh?
That speaks for itself. And I can tell you it was hard to sit there and film a lot of this stuff. You won't go up on the stage and physically stop it when you hear them saying those things. But the fact of the matter is that, we all know how that would have gone down. I would have been dragged out by security, and the cops would have actually arrested me, believe it or not, for stopping the sexual exploitation of a child in the city of Ithaca, because that's what the city of Ithaca is now, and that's what a lot of these cities have now become. But yeah, those quotes, they put to bed any notion that there isn't a sexual motive here. And the reason why these people feel so confident in saying such disgraceful things like that is because they know that everybody there is on board with them. And even if they begin to suspect this, is not going to call it out because of the social pressure element that I talked about earlier. And they are really exploiting the good nature and the desire to help their children of a lot of parents who see their kids struggling and don't know why. And, it's just really important that we stop these people wherever they pop up. And, I will, if they come back to Ithaca, I'll be back to, go expose them again, I should say. And if I get flack for it, I don't care. I'll expose them the next time too. I'll never stop exposing them, because ultimately the children are defenseless and we are their only protectors. It's on us. If we don't do it, nobody's going to do it.
So one last thing before we go. Since the Genesee Valley Observer has the identities of the organizers that have tried to remain hidden behind a 501c3 charity and all these drag performers, they say that they have vetting. What evidence do you have that their vetting is less than desirable?
I mean, I'm sorry, that question's almost that question's funny to me, and I don't mean to, you know, belittle the point, but it's just the fact
By
that
all
they're
means.
sexually exploiting children is the very acts of what they're doing is what shows me that their vetting process is off. Anybody who would attempt to groom a child into a sexual subculture, which all of these people admit is exclusively sexual within adult circles, uh, we don't even have to necessarily get into what they're doing to the kids to say that that is wrong, just based on what they're willing to admit it is once it becomes an adult situation. If you are trying to groom children into a subculture that once adult is a sexual one, then that's child grooming and it is sexually exploitive. And to groom children is a sign that you shouldn't be around children. So anybody who would vet somebody who would do that and decide that they should be around children is wrong.
Now, what you've been saying, I have to say, it sounds a lot like what has been described to me as hateful words. Um, and recently we've had some emails that have been sent to the Hilton Central School District. Have you heard about this?
I have not, no.
So, these parents were holding their own meetings outside of the school board about what to do about these pornographic books. They picked one out in particular, some gay book. There's hundreds of them. One is just like the other. It's just nasty. Um, but lo and behold, a email pops up and is sent to the media from Russia, from a Russian email saying using the exact same language from their Facebook posts about how the degenerates and the gay book and it needs to be removed. What I'm asking, are people like you? Are you just hateful terrorists?
Absolutely not. I am a person who loves and cares about children deeply. I have volunteered with children for my entire adult life. And when I see a defenseless child being exploited, it makes me angrier than just about anything I can possibly imagine. When I see adults taking advantage of kids who are vulnerable, who wants to be accepted, who wants to be loved and cared for, and they take advantage of that to groom them into sex, it makes my blood boil. So no, this is not hateful. This is out of love. I am trying to defend these
Less than a
children
minute.
out of a love for them, and I will never stop doing so. Not now, not ever.
Outstanding. Anything else for us, Rocco? We probably got a few seconds.
Just go to my YouTube channel, Ithaca Uncensored, for more.
Thank you. That was Rocco Lucente with the Genesee Valley Observer. I am Leon Rome. Thank you.